My name is Paula Infantino Long, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity to interview Beverly and Saul Drittel. Beverly will be a little late, so we're going to get started with Saul. He'll give us a lot of information, having been in town for many, many years. It is Tuesday, August 5th, 2014. We are at the Reeve House History and Cultural Resource Center on Mountain Avenue in Westfield. We're also fortunate to have Westfield Historical Society member Lou Franz helping doing the recording. It is not typical to interview two people together, but since Bev and Saul have been part of the downtown Westfield community for many years, we felt it was important to have both of them. Before we begin, I'd like to say I have known Beverly and Saul since I was a teenager and shopped in their store, Milady Shop. Saul was recently honored with the Westfield Historical Society Trustees Award at their annual dinner for his endless contributions to the town of Westfield, of which we're very fortunate to have you, Saul. So now if we can just begin and tell us when and where were you born?
I was born in Elizabeth, actually born in Roselle, grew up in Elizabeth, July 2028.
2028?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that was 1928.
Okay. I know you're being a little funny there. Okay.
Right.
So when did you and your family, or you came to Westfield, and I know what brought you here, but explain, what you did and how you came to Westfield.
Beverly and I were married in 1950. We lived in Elizabeth. Her parents lived in Westfield. She grew up in Westfield. We lived in Elizabeth for 5 years. I was in business in Elizabeth, had my manufacturing business. And in 1955, we moved back to Westfield with all of the exodus to the suburbia like everybody else. In 1959, 1960, I joined, my father-in-law employed me, and I joined the My Lady's Shop in Westfield. Since that time, I have prided myself in participation in what I consider the golden years of the downtown Westfield.
Mm-hmm. Many mom and pop stores, as they call them.
We were mostly mom and pop stores. I knew all the merchants. I was a member of the Chamber of Commerce, later became president of the Chamber of Commerce. I was a member of Rotary, and these were the important things to be in the Central Business District. And the Central Business District was many, as you said, mom and pop stores. There were basically only two chains in those days. We had Woolworths and we had Murphy's 5 and 10. John Frank, I know at that time, had another store in Plainfield. Later on, I had 3 stores outside of Westfield, My Lady's Shops. But basically we were mom and pop, and I knew all the merchants, either the owners or the managers of all the stores in town. The wonderful part of the Westfield downtown is you knew everybody. I mean, you knew the banker. The banker was your friend. He wasn't just a place you went in to make a deposit. We all shopped within each other, and we promoted with each other, and we agonized and profited from each other.
Absolutely, and as a person who shopped at that time, everyone knew you. I go in and I would see.
An example, your father.
Yes.
Your father was our garbage man, and he was a friend.
Yes.
I mean, he wasn't just somebody who walked away and just collected garbage. He knew it. He came in and said hello.
Yes.
And this was the relationship we all had in Westfield at that time.
Wonderful time. How would you say the Chamber of Commerce was very active at that time? What did they do for the community?
We were shortly after I joined my father-in-law, I went on the board of the Chamber of Commerce. And in those days, we didn't have a place that we met in the boardrooms of the various banks. Oh. All the banks were members of the Chamber of Commerce. They were our background, and we met in their boardrooms. And later on, we found an office and ran an office, but we were an area Chamber of Commerce. Later took in areas of Mountainside, Garwood, We had a big membership from Clark on the Terminal Avenue, the commercial end. And they contributed to our success. But there was no chamber, basically, like the Eastern Union County Chamber of Commerce. We were probably the strongest Western Union County Chamber of Commerce, or group that promoted business in the area. I know at that time it was stores. We all worked together, and we, as I said, we promoted together.
I hear the doorbell now, so...
We were talking about the chamber and how important it had been to the town of Westfield. But we didn't have the financials. The financials were each individual contributing a small amount of money to do whatever we had to do. Later on, of course, the Special Improvement District, the Downtown Westfield Corporation has taken over a lot of the role because of financially they're able to do it. But the chamber still operates and operates very well. The early times, we were an organization of merchants, basically, who wanted to keep the downtown going. We ran our promotions. We ran our Westfield Sales Days. We had, and of course, we cooperated during the Christmas holidays. We were all open at the same time. And until Haynes came into the town, we were a small town that people came to. Beverly can more or less tell you more about when my ladies started, and we can fill you in about who was there, what was there.
Do you want to say anything more when you were president of the chamber? Anything in particular that you accomplished?
I was president of the chamber at the time. I was on the board for maybe 40 years or something like that. But
any highlight that happened in particular? Was that when the Stop the Mall, or we'll talk about that
later?
Well,
we Stop the Mall. We had other projects, and it was a cooperation of not only merchants, banks, business people, real estate people who were a part of our group. I mean, it was a business community of downtown Westfield. They contributed and made Westfield what it was.
And I have to say, I didn't realize when you said there were other communities like now. I thought it was the Westfield Chamber, but
it's called the Westfield Area Chamber.
Okay, so it incorporated the other communities you mentioned. Like now, it does the same.
It does the same thing. Mm-hmm. At one time, we were very, very strong because we had a paid executive of the chamber who had a very strong industrial background, and he incorporated a lot of the industrial people of Clark and other areas into our chamber. And financially, that was very good for the chamber because we were able to spend money on things other than just sales days, and we became, downtown was the focus of it, really. But now my thoughts are more to what, from the historics, as how important the downtown is to the town of Westfield and the history of the downtown, which is what I love.
Right. And you talked about how it evolved from the mom and pop to now.
Yeah. Well, I have stories about many of the merchants and who they were and what they were, and they were beside everything else. They were fun. But we knew everybody. We knew the bankers. Harry Jadita with the Central Jersey Bank, 2 doors away from me. He was a friend. Bill Shepard from the National State Bank. I knew him from when I was in Elizabeth, and he was here. And these were friends. They helped us in our business as well. My father-in-law wanted to buy our building, and he went to Harry Jadita. He said, "Of course, Saul." He sold it. I wanted to expand into a property in Bridgewater. I went to Bill Shepard. Bill said, "Well, no question. The money's in your bank tomorrow morning." I mean, this was a relationship. We didn't go fill out this and this and that. We were friends, and they were in business with us. And that's what the town, that was those days. It can't be that way today, because today the town is dominated by chains who are run by managers and this and that, but it's a different time. Times change, and we go along with time change.
Exactly. What percentage would you say today do we have of small individuals in town, of stores owned by individuals? Not many, but there are still some.
If there are 20%, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But mostly they're service stores and not retail. Retail itself is very difficult today as a retail, from the retail standpoint, clothing and such. The others who are in are service type of businesses and food type of businesses.
Would you say it's the rents that contribute to the small ones really being able to survive?
No,
not the rents, no? I'm just curious.
The internet business has taken 18 to 20% of the business today. And it is very difficult for the individual merchant to compete with that. And he's competing with Lord & Taylor here. You're on sale all the time. Bloomingdale's, and my wife is at, on sale all the time. But those that are here and work are good merchants.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So is there anything more you want to talk about that Stop the Mall situation?
Well,
that was a big event that I recall. And when was that? Do you recall about when that was?
I don't remember the year, but there was the development on Springfield Avenue and Route 22. There was a Howard Johnson's there with a motel and such. And there was a plan to build a mall headed by Bambergers. A individual who lived in Springfield, because that is actually Springfield, came to us and said, do you know that that's going to happen? And matter of fact, I think Warren Rorden was president at that time, and I was on the board. And we organized a meeting at the Westfield Tennis Club. A town-wide meeting. We invited everybody from town, whoever wanted to come, and we wanted to outline what we knew about the mall that they were planning. And our feeling was if the mall came there and they built it there, the downtown Westfield would die because the traffic would go there, would not come stay in town. So we organized, and with the contributions from the citizens, who then urged our town council to back us and attend all the meetings, all the hearings about it. And a member of the town council came, and we came, and through contributions from the citizens, we organized this Stop the Mall campaign. In fact, Warren and I used my van, and we rode around town. We put posters up all around town, Stop the Mall, Stop the Mall. And we did an effective job, and we stopped it. It didn't happen.
So nice.
They built housing there, multiple housing. And to our credit, I think we did it. But it would have been devastating. We had a similar situation when Haynes wanted to come into town. John, Frank, myself, and I forget the other merchant, we went to the hearings of the board for permission to build it there. Our fear was that 3 blocks out of the center of town, people would go there and not come into town. And it's true. When they first opened up, you didn't go drive to Haynes and then come into town and walk into town, but you stopped in town and walked to Haynes. And they were not a particularly friendly merchant. They tried to stop certain things that we were carrying. If we were open on Monday night, they opened on Friday night, and we switched to Friday night, they changed to Thursday night. I mean, they were not a particularly cooperative merchant.
I think that's changed now, would you say? Because I know the Historical Society
has events with them. Because the times have changed. Now we have chains and we have Lord & Taylor. Now people do go from one to the other. They'll go to Haynes, they'll go to Lord & Taylor and walk into town to go to the chains, or they'll go to the chains and then walk to Lord & Taylor. But in those days, our fear was that it wouldn't happen that way. But it happened, and we survived it. We survived.
Well, you had to get acclimated, so to speak, and see how it worked. And I think overall people could be coming from out of town to there. And then go certainly to the jazz concerts. It could be a lure to come in.
They're coming into town, introduced a lot of people to Westfield. That had never been.
Okay. So I just want to say, I think that Stop the Mall was maybe the 60s, just to put it in perspective. I'm estimating around the 60s. Yeah. And a great effort on, I think that's one thing with Westfield, when they want to do something, people get together and they get it done. You can think of, I don't know if you can think of any other examples. That's a big one. But there are so many examples.
Just to tell you how that meeting, the contribution, largest contributor to our Stop the Mall happened to be the gentleman who owned Westfield Plumbing Supply. He wasn't a merchant, but he felt a certain feeling towards Westfield itself, and he was our largest contributor.
Do you know who that was? Do you know who that was? I don't know the person.
That's Tony DeChellis.
Okay. Yes.
Who later was on the board of a bank and this and that. But he was our largest single contributor.
Okay, very good. Okay, so Beverly has joined us before, and now we welcome you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to start with, if you can tell us when and where you were born.
I was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1931, and my parents had started the store 2 years before, and they commuted until about 1936 when we moved, we moved to Westfield.
Oh, so they started the store in Westfield but lived in Newark.
Yes.
Okay. And what did he do before, your dad? Did he have a store somewhere else?
No, it was the first store.
Okay.
They had stores all over. What am
Okay.
I saying? When they had like a chain. They were in Plainfield. They were in Westfield.
You and your uncle, your father and your uncle.
Yeah, they had, but it didn't last long.
All my ladies, though, similar time?
Yes.
Yes.
But for a very short time.
Okay.
But when they moved to Westfield, it was my lady shop. And then they decided a couple of years later, probably about 5 or 6 years later, they would open another My Ladies down the street where not Pavella's, I would say.
You mean the first one?
Yeah, they called it the Beverly Shop. And
After you?
yes, because they couldn't have another My Lady shop. So for about 6 months, my name was in lights.
So it had to be different
No, it was the
merchandise
same merchandise, and it was sort of a dopey thing to do.
Oh, my gosh.
Because customers didn't know it was the same store. Didn't last too long.
When was that? What year? Do you know what year?
I would
I
say
think it was 1939, 40.
Okay.
40 or 41.
I was about 10 years old,
Okay.
11. They had a big opening, and it was pink neon, and it spelled out Beverly. I don't know where that sign is.
That's when they moved closer to Elm Street. When they moved up there, it was a better location. Because before that, they were all the way down closer to Prospect Street. The location was better, and he had a little larger store, and my father-in-law was a good merchant, and he knew what he wanted.
Pretty courageous, though, to do that. So that one didn't last
So
more
the
than
second
6
store
months.
didn't last too
Okay.
long.
Okay.
And then they were one store for many, many years until they brought Saul in the business, and he started opening. Did you talk about your other stores?
Well, tell us what the store My Ladies represents. I remember shopping and visiting you.
My Ladies was lingerie and active sportswear. At one time it was millinery. If a customer wanted to know how a hat would look, my father was willing to put the hat on and model it for her. It was jewelry for a while, but it was mostly hosiery and lingerie. And then we took over the store next to it.
That's after I was there.
And then we had sportswear.
2 stores. I don't remember 2 storefronts.
No. Our original store,
You
the
came in
original
through the
store that
same-
I joined was at 167 East Broad Street, and that was 14 foot by 150 feet deep, and it was long and narrow. And the bakery was next door to us.
Do you remember Bonet's Bakery?
Yeah, they were next door to us, and they went out of business. And my father-in-law bought that building, and we broke through and combined the two together. Then he bought the building the original building we're in. But I'm just saying that that's when we expanded, and I think it probably was in the 1960 or something like that.
Now, was your mother or any other siblings involved in the store?
No, only child.
You're an only child? I didn't ask you, Saul. You have siblings?
No, I'm the baby of 3 children.
Okay. So no one else in the store.
In later years, my daughter came to work.
Okay.
Brought an infant that she fed in the back
Okay.
for meal times.
Well, that's always the advantages of when you are the owner's daughter, right? To do that. So then your dad, I guess, retired, and they stay in Westfield.
Never retired.
Never retired.
Your dad never retired?
No.
He stayed to see that.
I think he took Saul into the business and he worked harder.
Well, that's one thing we have to emphasize with the both of you: your work ethic and your love of working. Continue to work.
He was a man who, whatever I wanted to do, he said, fine. Whatever you want to do. We opened the second My Lady's shop in Orange, and good. It was a relative owned the property, and they had a fire, and they had space. I said, oh, Saul will be good. Yeah, okay, we'll open the store. Then I saw a store, the store for sale in Bridgewater. Of course, sure, we'll open the store. Whatever I wanted, that man was, he was a very unusual person. And to his credit, he kept me going. He gave me the encouragement. And he really was the one who inspired me to be very active in Westfield. He made me do it. He made you join, you go, you belong to you run the chamber, And it was really from him that I got my inspiration.
A good example, mentor, so to speak. That's fortunate when that happens. I think I asked you when we were speaking before the interview if you and your family attended the temple in town. Did anyone attend the temple?
Yes, it really started in 1950 with 10 families, and we have pictures of my father shoveling the dirt as they built the temple.
I believe he was one of the people instrumental in starting the temple.
Yeah,
it was one of the original
10 Jewish
families.
What is his
Jewish
name?
families.
Tell me his name.
My father?
Yes.
Saul Silberman.
Okay.
With a B.
Okay. So he was one of the original...
one of the 10 original families, members that started.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think several of the other stores in town were members of the temple, right?
Well,
so I knew Mark Barondess.
Yeah, well, the Jewish population basically in Westfield was insignificant except for the number of merchants. Maybe there were 10 merchants that were Jewish.
Spectre and the leader.
And as I said, the influx of people coming from Elizabeth and Newark to the suburbs, because they built the homes here for us to come to. And as we came into Westfield in 1955, others did. And, there was a big mix of people, but they were part of it. The fellas got out of the army and they came to live in suburbs. And that's when the Westfield exploded from that standpoint, as and our family. They started with 10, but I think we opened with close to 100 families and such.
Could I say that I watched the post office being built, 1939. We lived on Lenox Avenue. We had bumpy sidewalks, and the post office was smooth. You could roller skate there. That was like a historical movement.
What about where speaking of that downtown and what you observed, where the Felice and the library, would that have been in place at that time? The Felice shop, or that was our original library?
My library.
Where Felice is.
I sat on the steps and watched the Memorial Day parade every year.
That changed
at the library.
At the library, the whole parade went past.
Well, that changed when the library moved. When the Grand School closed and the library moved to where Grand School is, and then Felice had that, moved there. But she was there many, many years. I mean, then we can go through some of our merchant things, I mean, there a lot of history with a lot of the merchants in town.
So just for my own interest, so the library was there, and then Grand School, and then the municipal building. I didn't realize it was at Grand School. Did you say the library was moved to Grand School?
No, the Grand School closed, and the library moved there.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, and then it moved to the municipal building.
No.
No.
Grand School. It was at the municipal building before.
Oh, okay. The Grand School is where the library is now.
Right.
Oh, right.
Currently.
But it was in the municipal building for a while. Okay, right.
And I went to Grand School until it closed, till 6th grade.
So, Beverly, having mostly grown up here, just tell us anything that shines in your mind in terms of, growing up, what it was like. Were you in sports, or what was your childhood like growing up in
It was a very
Westfield?
preppy town. It was easy to make friends. I don't have any great memories.
Well, I mean, you weren't in sports, and I don't know if they have all the activities that they do today in terms of sports and music education. They probably didn't have that so
they
much.
always had a tennis team. I didn't make the tennis team. Girls did not go out for sports like they do today. They didn't have baseball. They didn't have soccer. It was Westfield High football, and that was the biggest thing in town.
And you have to.
And they were undefeated every year.
Oh.
And the main game was Thanksgiving, and it was in Plainfield, against Plainfield.
And still is our rival.
Yeah,
Yes,
it still is.
That was the Gary Keller days, maybe, or a little bit after.
Before that, too.
Okay.
My class was Jerry McGinley
Uh-huh.
and Ted Frankenbach. They were the good players.
Now, see, there's history of the downtown. Frankenbach became the big insurance people here.
And McGinley, there were sons,
Yeah.
and they lived not far away.
So, is there any world events along the way that
Yes.
you can think that
World
impacted
War II.
the business and how your business was and how the downtown was? I know they had a big parade when the soldiers came home, where the quadrant is, where the children's place is.
But during the war, I mean, from a business standpoint, I know my father-in-law, they were in business. And there was rationing, and then, I mean, he sold hosiery, but hosiery was rationed. And he used to have to travel to New York to do his buying, and was able to buy a little here, a little there, to bring back to put into the store to do sales.
The silk stockings became parachutes. So that's why it's very hard to buy stockings.
Right. I don't know if people know that. Hopefully they'll.
And we have ration stamps.
But,
My mother had a book. We took it to the A&B.
Yeah. But at the bond, but I'm just saying it was from a business standpoint. It was a difficult time. Not because there were people not around, but because of certain supplies they couldn't get and this and that.
But people shopped then.
Yeah, I know.
Business never went bad.
No, I know.
Really?
But
It did not impact.
They shopped here. They did not go anywhere. They shopped. They stayed here. That's what Westfield.
We didn't have
was.
malls.
They didn't have
then.
malls, though. You
That's
didn't
right.
really
have a choice. And your gas was rationed.
Yeah.
You didn't take a car and go far away.
I don't know that people would shop maybe to Plainfield. I recall Tepper's.
Yes.
I mean,
Well,
Plainfield was beautiful.
perhaps you would go to there, but
Plainfield had two
there was no.
department stores.
And I remember going to Newark, right? You might go to
Right,
downtown
you go to
Newark,
Bamberger's.
perhaps. But for the most part, I think that's the blessing of a small town where you stay here.
Yes.
Uh,
And you could go
then-
to Plainfield by bus or train very easily. We always had the railroad. We always had the 49 bus.
And the trolley way back when. I talk about the trolley when I do my little tour at schools. Okay, so is there anything else you would like to add, Beverly, before I get back to Saul for a minute, about your experience? And you're still living here?
Still living here.
Here.
We're still working. Retirement was never mentioned in my family. You worked till you died. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it suits us fine.
So just tell me a little bit how you met. I don't know if you said that before, Saul. Tell us when you were married and how many
Well,
children
and I
you have.
we met down the Jersey Shore, and we probably knew or went together for 3 years, and I was a child groom. She was a trial bride, but those days you married early, and we married, and as I said, moved to Elizabeth, spent 5 years in Elizabeth, had 2 children born there, and then moved to Westfield.
And had a third.
No,
If he
the third was
if
in
he ever hears
Westfield.
this, he'll feel
But I'm just
terrible.
saying, we had 2 children and moved from Elizabeth to Westfield.
Our children all went to Westfield schools.
Yeah.
And did
They all graduated Westfield High, and we have one still living in Westfield, and a daughter and a great-grandchild.
Great. So how many
Great-grandchild.
grandchildren? How many grandchildren?
We have 3 great-grandchildren,
Great.
10
Eight
grandchildren.
grandchildren.
Well, 2 got married.
Well,
10.
we consider it 10 because that makes it 10 instead
Okay.
of 8.
That's great. Okay, so I'm just going to get to kind of end with the downtown. If you can just talk about we know how it evolved to the chains and what we have now. So just summarize that now, how different it is, and the impact we now have.
Well,
the Downtown Westville Corporation and all that you're a part of very much.
Yes.
Tonight is jazz night. You'll be supervising and checking out the bands. Tell us a little bit about what the DWC does and how it's impacted.
Well, DWC is a corporation, and it is financed by Central Business District tax money. There's a permanent staff of 3, and Sherry Cronin is the head of it and runs a very good ship. And they do the promotions, they do the concerts, they do the promoting of downtown Westfield, as opposed to the Chamber of Commerce, which is a organization of business people. They do downtown, but they also are interested in the doctors, lawyers, and others. The Westfield Corporation is basically does the retail, promotes the retail interests of downtown Westfield. Times have changed from the times that I started in downtown. And as I said, today they're managers who manage these most of the chains in town, and it's not the same type of thing that we had when, from the history of the downtown, of the creation of the downtown. Yeah, you had merchants like John Franks, you had merchants like Jane Smith, Arthur Shargo from Arthur Stevens Children's Store, and you had Harry Taylor from Taylor's Hardware. I mean, these were merchants. One time we had 3 hardware stores in town: Taylor's Hardware, Goodman's, Good Friends, and Tudor Hardware on the South Side. We had little barber shops. We had, and as I said, the banks knew all the banks. I mean, and these were local people, even though they may have been chain banks, a couple of them, they were local people. And I mean, as I said in my speech the other day, I said, you could not have a Made in America today, because nothing is made in America. But Nat Cohn had a store called Made in America. I mean, it was a marvelous store, and everything was made in America. And also, I mean, we had sewing stores. We had 3 in town.
Singer.
We had the sewing center. We had...
we had Singer. Then we had the one on East Broad Street.
I
forget the name, but
you
could find any button in the world, any little item, snaps.
But that was the nature of the business. And you had your drugstores. You had Barron's. You had Jarvis. Jarvis, you mentioned restaurants.
You had
I mean,
Licketts,
Jarvis had
Walgreens.
But Jarvis had their little luncheonette in there.
They had a counter.
And it was
Schaefer's.
Schaefer's, we had 2 diners in town. We had the Westfield Diner, the Leckus Diner on North Avenue.
Well, first you had it on East Broad Street,
and then we had the one the wooden diner next to John Frank's on East Broad Street.
It was nice.
You're really taking me down memory lane. I remember all the stores you're talking about.
Yes,
and the sweet shop when we had Shades.
Oh,
what
the
about
sweet
Shades?
shop.
The sweet
and
shop.
Shades for ice cream.
Shades.
After school,
Shades.
kids would go down and the sweet shop.
And then it became
Shades.
Hills.
And what about the Hills? In Hills, they made his own
First
ice
was
cream,
Shades,
Yeah.
Candy Kitchen was the
And
best.
you had Jeanette's. I mean, you had Morris Kamler. Morris Kamler was one of the biggest characters in town. And yet, on flag days, Morris was in charge of getting all the flags up in town. We used to get together at 7 o'clock in the morning. We'd go to the city hall. They had the flags stored in the basement, and we'd come and we'd insert them in the holders all over town.
Which is still done today.
Yes, but now it's done by the I think by the Veterans of Foreign Wars. or whoever does it.
Or the Scouts.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Scouts
Probably
contribute.
the Scouts.
So you did talk about how things changed when people were coming into town, and now you can certainly, as part-time realtor, I think you're still doing real estate and more commercial, how the town is exploding with people coming in from Hoboken and New York City, right? We've got this whole new influx.
Well-
Because I say Westfield's a destination now. Would you say we're a
Oh,
destination?
people say,
We're a destination. We're not the Westfield that we knew growing up.
right.
The beauty of downtown Westfield is we have, and from a merchant standpoint or from my real estate standpoint of this, we have people walking in town. We have people pushing carriages in town. When we closed in 1993, the town was 40% empty. Woolworths had closed, John Frank's had closed, and we were 40% empty downtown. In my building, I had 2 empty stores that I couldn't rent.
What year was that, Saul?
1993.
93, okay.
That's the year we closed on our 65th anniversary. You could roll a bowling ball down the center of East Broad Street and you wouldn't hit anything. Today, when people complain to me that there's no park, I can't find a parking space, it's the best thing in the world. Best thing in the world. I mean, the parking is taken up. But, today we have people walking in town. They go in and out of stores. You go in the morning, you go to a Panera Bread, and all the tables are filled with people. And this is what Westfield is, and that's why people want to come to Westfield. True, they say we have some empty stores. We do. Everybody has empty stores, in and out merchandise. We are unique. And part of that, of course, most of it I attribute to DWC, Downtown Westfield. They're keeping the town alive with promotions and just the health of the downtown.
Has incredible energy. It's a wonderful place. I grew up here myself, and
I think you closed the store in 95 because you said 65 years.
No, we closed in 93. Your father opened up in October 3rd, 1928. It was in the Westfield. I had the Westfield Leader ad on that. And we closed, I think it's October 1st, 1993, on the 65th anniversary.
And basically, you were tired or ready to retire, or
No, we closed because business wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
We just, I went out of the business, went into the real estate business.
Mm-hmm. Because certainly things change, merchandising changes, people have different requests and needs, and at that time things were, I don't know if there were so many chains at that time, but certainly people weren't looking for hosiery and so much.
Business shifted,
Mm-hmm.
and
they were still looking for lingerie. That's why I went to Bloomingdale.
The business changed,
Mm-hmm.
and the communities changed, and people
there were no more mom and papa stores. That's the reason.
Well, no more stores. I'm saying our big draws in town were no longer there.
Okay, so I think we're pretty much going to summarize now. I'm going to ask you if there's anything accomplishments or events that you really want to close with as being really important to you. We talked about some of them. So any major accomplishments or rewarding events or projects that you're the most proud of for what you've done, and you're still going. You're not done. You're not stopping. You're not retiring. You help with the DWC and Jazz Night, which is tonight.
Oh,
what's the highlight?
I think what I said about Westfield and the downtown and what it is and what is going on today are important because of the health of it. And the contributions made by the early merchants that made Westfield what it was is what I was really anxious to emphasize. As I said to John Franks in the end, these were people who really felt for the down. Their lives were centered here, and they built their businesses in downtown Westfield. And that has been carried on today. And though times have changed with the nature of the stores in town, but that's the nature of business in general. From the historic standpoint, I think it's important to understand the background and the people who were there to do what it was. Barondess and all of these all of these merchants who really lived here and worked here and made the town what it was.
Because you have to say, the business community and the people that come here are proud to be here, and they realize how special Westfield is. It truly is a special place.
Thank you, Paula.
Works for that effort. So what messages or thoughts do you have for any new businesses or members coming in? What messages or thoughts do you have? Anything that you, going forward, are we on the right track?
I think it's important from the historic standpoint that the new people coming in understand what Westfield is, what it was, what it has become, what it will be, the future of it. And in coming here from a merchant standpoint and understanding that, I think that can only help the center of downtown Westfield.
Do you think these new stores that come in will think of all that?
I think it's important from a standpoint of the history,
like city
that they
sports.
understand it. They understand what the downtown is, why we are a circular center. We're not long and spread out like many towns are, that from one end to the other there is nothing. We are a circular center, and that is part of what has made this town so good. When I talk to people coming into town and want to look at businesses in town, that's my emphasis, that you have people walking by your store because they go to Starbucks or they go to our new store. Our City Sports is a marvelous new merchant. They're open and they're bright, and people go in and out, and they come there, and they come into town because of that, but then they distribute themselves through the rest of town.
I think, Beverly, you're just talking about like the chains sometimes don't have that ability because they've got their guidelines that they have to follow. But hopefully, I would imagine when they're here a while, they do try to acclimate and participate as much as they can, even though I understand sometimes they can't put signs up. They can't do this because the guidelines of the chain says no. But I would think, Saul, you would see after time that they try to work as much as they can to be part of a community like this. Right. They have no choice, and why wouldn't they want to? But they are a little restricted, perhaps, by that.
Athlete, who is opening either today or tomorrow.
That's a Gap.
In the Kids Gap. I was in the downtown Westfield office today. They're anxious to find out how to promote, how to participate in this and that. Beth Brenner was on the phone with them, must have been for a half an hour. Their publicity person wanted to find out more about how to promote a downtown. And they know. They have 5 other divisions in town, so they know how good we are.
Great. So the last question I'll just ask, what would you like to be remembered for? Your work ethic, that's number one. Your love of work and giving back to the community.
And loving the town.
Loving the town.
I would like to remember the solid people who really made the downtown. There were many that I worked with and knew about. Not myself. I was an interloper. I came into it, and I appreciated what
two generations past us. So
but that
you're an
was
integral part, though.
That was the generation that really made this town good. And you, as I said, the names are the John Franks, the Jane Smith, the Arthur Schogel, the Nat Cohn, the Harry Taylor, and the bankers. These are the ones that I would like to see remembered.
But you have a 30-year-old granddaughter who never heard of one of these, and she grew up here.
Well, but now she can listen to this interview and hear.
Yes, that's
true.
That.
So we really thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
And this will be part of our archives, and people will be able to come and hear all that you've done and